Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Shahab Karni from I-95 Television Washington studio. This morning, we will be talking about Pakistan and US relations as we speak, the current situation, and then, of course, the way forward, resetting the relationships. So, in order to do that, this is a little complicated right now as the geopolitical situation. One, the second thing is with the new administration in place under Joe Biden. And let me show you this slide. And this is going to give you a reflection that Joe Biden, especially on foreign relations, so he has been an expert and a very engaged player on foreign relations, unlike other head of the state or other president of the United States for years. So, just connecting that conversation, I had to search thoroughly to have a very appropriate and distinguished guest. So, fortunately, I was able to shortlist, and even with that list, I shorted one very distinguished international career diplomat, Dr. Jamil Ahmad Khan, former ambassador. But rather than me going into a proper introduction so that I don't want to miss something on his intro, I'm going to request him to introduce to the audience so that I don't miss anything and we can comprehend that why I invited him for this topic. One. The second disclaimer is that we are doing this segment or this episode in English for valid reasons because as soon as I promoted this segment on my social media outlets, then I got a lot of requests from our friends in Washington, D.C. to have this segment in English so that they can also learn from this conversation as a policymaker. So let me bring to the screen Ambassador Jamil Ahmad Khan. Thank you very much, Excellency. How are you today?
Oh, thank you very much for having me, and I'm very delighted to be with you, Mr. Karni. You have given me a difficult task of introducing myself. I normally introduce myself with my name only, but perhaps you wanted me to give you some background. Yes, in the current situation, what is
Go,
going
go
on.
ahead. The reason, Ambassador, I said so because I don't want to miss anything that why you are proper or why I selected you for this conversation. Go ahead, sir.
I understand your selection is mostly, quite appropriate. I don't know whether this one could be the appropriate one or not, but I must tell you that in the present situation, any person, I'm included in that, who has the background of the region with the oversight of what is happening around in the globe, would be probably in a better position to address to such topics and to try and do some justice with such topics. So I started my career with the armed forces, like in most of the Western country. Normally, people try and join the armed forces to get groomed. So I started my career from the armed forces, and while I was a captain, I then appeared in the CSS exam, the Central Competitive Exam, and from there I got selected for the civil services, and from civil services I got selected for United Nations, where I have served 5 different countries as a country head in UNDSS, and followed by I was selected as ambassador of Pakistan to Libya with concurrent accreditation of Malta, Burkina Faso, and Togo, and then I was transferred and posted from there to in the UAE. But while I was in uniform in the Pakistan Army, I was also sent on secondment to Saudi Arabia, where I served in the Saudi forces, what they call Al Jash Al Arabia Al Saudia. So I have a little bit sense of the region, I would say, and anyone for that matter with this kind of a background should have the sense of the region. And I also try and have in view and keep in view what is going around on the global situation. So that's about it. I think the background which you probably for which you probably selected me for appearing in your show.
Thank you, Ambassador. So let's come back to the topic. As I said, we are going to talk about Pakistan and USA relations. resetting and way forward. So, as I mentioned to my audience, that Joe Biden, unlike other president in United States for at least last 32 years, is a unique actor, unique person who has thorough knowledge of foreign relations because he headed the U.S. Senate Committee for Foreign Affairs and International Relations for years. One thing. The second thing is, let's start as far as Pakistan goes. Let's start with this slide. Audience, please look at this. Mr. Zardari way back honoring Vice President Joe Biden. So, I mean, that's the kind of relationship. So, Ambassador Jamil, please tell us when
Yeah.
I say about Joe Biden, new administration, what do you see?
He definitely, Joe Biden has an edge, and he has an edge which no other president of the United States had ever had. And as you have already indicated in your intro, that he has been chairing the Foreign Relations Committee of the Senate, and prior to that, he was a member of the Foreign Affairs Committee. He has been fully involved in while U.S. was supporting and while U.S. was going in the Gulf War in 1991, and he was fully involved, but and supported the Afghanistan war. He supported war in Afghanistan initially, and later on he thought that this war is an unending war, an infinite war. So he started readjusting his thoughts and the foreign policy while he was the chair of the Foreign Relations Committee, and rightly so. That was an unending war, and the U.S. was spending there so much of capital, both human as well as the financial capital. So, and he feels the Joe Biden, the president of United States, Joe Biden, he feels that the same goal can be achieved by diplomatic efforts and by carrying the allies with him and along his side, and by creating the same image of the United States which it had for several years, for decades. So it appears Joe Biden has in his mind to address the whole thing, and yet do not lose the sight of what is the goal and what is the mission of the United States in terms of achieving its influence in the region. So I guess he's the right person, and the United States has got the right president to deal with not only Afghanistan situation, but the situation in the region in particular and around the globe in general. And he has himself said that the foreign policy needs to be reset. And he himself has said, and he has started going back to the climate change. He has started going back to the Trans-Pacific Partnership. He started going back to the oil pipeline with Canada. He started going back with so many. And more importantly, he has now started. He thought that it's a losing war if the United States doesn't go back and resume the nuclear accord with Iran, which was done by in Obama administration, and Joe Biden was fully involved in it. And even the most important partner of the United States, the state of Israel, in my view and in my analysis, I feel that Israel also feels that the withdrawing from the accord is not paying the right kind of fruits and the dividends. Therefore, resuming the accord would probably achieve the aim for which the accord was formulated and accord was signed with Iran, so that Iran is not able to do the enrichment. Reportedly, Iran has now been able to enrich the uranium up to 60%, and that is almost very close to the nuclear device enrichment. So this is because as the expert says, this is perhaps because of the fact that the United States withdrew, and then Iran had the full liberty to go for whatever they wanted to. So therefore, in conclusion, I think Joe Biden is having the right approach to address the problems by through an influence of the United States, and by increasing and enhancing the influence of the United States, and by using the path of diplomatic course.
So
Yeah.
coming back to Pakistan, sir, I mean, I already showed you that one actor that he has been engaged with. You see Mr. Zardari, you see former President of Afghanistan Karzai there. Let me show you another slide, Ambassador. Nawaz Sharif and the current president and head of the state of Afghanistan, Ashraf Ghani. And in between, we see the former vice president, now the president of the United States. Then another slide, sir, you see with Nawaz Sharif. So, meaning he has been engaged with these actors as far as Pakistan goes. So what do you see the way forward right now as we speak? Because with the new head of the government, he has no repo one. And it's a difficult question to Ambassador Jamil Ahmad Khan, which I never had a preemptive, a pre-conversation with him. My complete full disclaimer on this question that some time back, very recently, Imran Khan, the current head of the government, and chief of staff, they visited White House with President Trump last year. And I will say because of Jared Kushner, because of his son-in-law, this was more than a diplomatic mission, more it was a commercial kind of mission because a lot of transactional background conversation were involved, and we didn't see any State Department engagement during that visit and the meetings. So what are you going to say? Because the things have changed. Now, in the White House, we have a different actor, as we mentioned, and a different team. So what is the way forward, sir?
Now, in your intro and the slides which you have shown, that's a clear demonstration of the fact that the President Joe Biden, he knows all the actors and all the stakeholders in the whole calculus of the geopolitical and geostrategic scenario. So from that angle, he would be very comfortable. A, that he knows ins and outs of the entire region, and he's been dealing with the United States foreign policy for a very prolonged period of time. B, that he knows the actors and the stakeholders. C, that he has started recalibrating and recalibrating its and continuous calibration of the diplomatic approach, which was not as good as he wanted or as he is now trying to have it during the Trump's time in particular. So from that angle, he would have much more convenience to engage himself. And he has already said that he's going to engage with all these stakeholders, not only in the region and in this case with Pakistan. Of course, that also is included, and he's going to engage. In fact, to start with, the President of the United States wanted to put the house in order first, and he has by far been able to do it in last several months. Now, his priority has, one could see that he started focusing more towards the foreign policy and towards engaging the world stakeholders and world players, and particularly his own allies. So there are two challenges which he has in my region, in Pakistan, India and Indian Ocean and this Middle East, and those two challenges are A, that how to maintain peace and tranquility, international peace in that area. B, he is the biggest and he is the strongest proponent of the human right, and he has been always advocating that. So B, that he would like that the human right violation should not happen in the region, and if that happens, he is able to address it. And he has spoken at length with President Xi on that account, and he is now already today's speech, I guess, while he was addressing Joe Biden was addressing the veterans of the United States, he mentioned that he's going to meet on the 16th of this month, June, and he's going to meet Putin, the Russian president, and he's going to raise the point of human rights. So once, and what is this? It's basically, to me, he has started making the best use of human right diplomacy. And human right diplomacy is nothing but the international law. And what is that international law? The very first chapter of United Nations Charter, in the first paragraph, indicates that human right value has to be maintained by all the members, and of course the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So America has always been recognized and has always been having a very high moral grounds on the basis of maintaining the value of human rights and propelling it all over the world. So he's using that human right diplomacy and trying to re-engage with the allies of United States. And the allies of United States have also been talking about human rights a lot. So in that case, he'll be able to engage with Pakistan. He'll be able to engage with Afghanistan, and he has already done that. Pakistan would have a lot of challenges which is coming forth, and no one could understand the challenges of Pakistan more than Joe Biden, because he has been having all his previous 10, 15 years, he has been dealing with this matter. If there was some other president, perhaps that president of United States would have to resort to a lot of briefings. He doesn't need any briefing, in fact. Little briefing for him to update him would be more than enough. Even perhaps he would not need that as well. So from that point of view, Pakistan has a challenge, and Pakistan, from time to time, once there was some friction, I won't say friction, but there was not as good a relation, diplomatic relation, as we wanted, or as United States wanted, because of probably transparency factor. With Joe Biden, I think Pakistan and the country and all the players in the region have to be very straight and transparent, that this is what it is, this is what Taliban's are now, and these are the Taliban's potency, and this is how, if you ask us to deal with Taliban, these are the terms of reference to deal with Taliban. If you ask us not to deal with this terms of reference and some other terms of reference, then Pakistan would have its consequences. Pakistan has already suffered more than $100 billion total losses, including infrastructure, and Pakistan has lost about 70,000 human beings, 70,000 lives, and it was of nobody's interest. Now Pakistan, on the other hand, China-Pakistan friendship, that is sometimes perceived by the United States, some of the stakeholders and some of the think tanks, that perhaps Pakistan has totally gone Chinese pocket. So that impression, I think Joe Biden understands that what kind of a relation Pakistan has been having from 60s onward with the United Nations, and I think he's going to capitalize on the strong points of Pakistan-U.S. relations. So
Now,
from that angle,
Ambassador, sorry to interrupt, let me take advantage of your profile. I mean, you have served in, of course, you know about Saudi Arabia situation. Now, you have served as Pakistan's ambassador in United Arab Emirates for 3 years. And UAE is an important player now in that region when it comes to India, Pakistan, Kashmir issue, the Abraham Accord, and all those things. And let me show you this slide. The former chief of staff, the reason I'm saying, he is now in Saudi Arabia leading the allied forces of 40 plus Islamic countries, forces, and Yemen factor is there. So Pakistan, interestingly, is in the middle or of everywhere. So now, keeping in view your relationship, your knowledge of that region, if I had to ask you for resetting and moving forward, what will be your advice to our folks back in Pakistan, whether it's the civilian government or our military rulers there? I'm sure they have a big stake in foreign affairs. So what will be, and you have a mix of both, from that side and the civilian side and diplomacy. So if in my final hour of this question, final minutes of these questions, if I had to ask you, what will be your advice to them back in Pakistan as far as US is concerned? What is the way forward?
well, I am a free citizen now. I am obviously no more the ambassador of Pakistan, so I can give you my free thoughts and my analysis on it. So that's very simple. You have mentioned about Abraham Accord. Fine, that is one aspect, and you have mentioned about what Pakistan approach should be. So Pakistan is basically now facing a challenge of perception. The perception of Pakistan is that as if we are totally against Israel, or we are totally against India. We are not totally against India or Israel. We are trying to attain our objective in the interest of the international peace and tranquility. If the India and Pakistan do not sort out their matter, then international peace, both the nuclear powers, international peace is at stake. Now, likewise, if Israel matter is not resolved with Palestinian, then it's a matter of international peace, which is enunciated in the United Nations Charter, chapter 4, 5, 6, 7. All those chapters have amply shedded light on the international peace and tranquility. So international peace and tranquility, we never like that should be disturbed. We never like that we should have any because of Pakistan there should be any such difficulty, and therefore the approach to our folks back in Pakistan is that whether Ibrahim Accord, whether India has a relation, the best of the best relation they can have with the United States, we've been having the best of the best relations with the United States. So long as India does not thrive on the enmity of Pakistan and do not use the assets given by United States against Pakistan, we are very happy. They should have the best of the best. If they are trying to position themselves against any other country, Pakistan if not affected, then we are fine enough. And likewise, Ibrahim Accord, if UAE or Saudi Arabia, that's their own foreign policy. Who are we under the international law to intervene in that? We only have the biggest concern that the Security Council resolutions which have been passed for Palestine should be implemented. That is and then likewise the Security Council resolutions which have been passed for Kashmir. Our expectation, which is very genuine and justified expectation, is that those Security Council resolutions which has been passed by the world community with Security Council, that should be implemented. And if the world community feels that there should be some reset and there should be some readjustment, there should be some recalibration, why not? Let's sit on the table and do the meeting again, deliberate it again and take it to the Security Council, pass another resolution, and Pakistan would respect the international law. So our folks should respect the international law, which they have always been saying, and our folks should not bother who is having relations with whom, right? Whether it's UAE, Saudi Arabia having relation with Israel, or our problem is that if we have relations with Israel, then we are compromising on Kashmir. That is what the whole problem, which our folks they understand there, they feel there. So that is a very big quagmire we are into it. But so far as the relation is concerned of any other country with any third country, we have no problem. We should not have any problem with that, and that's what my message to the folks back home is.
Ambassador Jamir Ahmed Khan, thank you very much, sir, that you were able to join me on a very short notice. And this conversation does not end here. Definitely in coming weeks, we are going to be inviting you because you have done a lot of research. You have got good sight, in the Middle East, Pakistan, and especially United States. So definitely we will be inviting you. Ambassador, thank you very much for joining me tonight.
Thank you very much for having me in your show. Thank you.
Thank you.